Not a lot of context behind this slideshow, but this guy likely did something horrible and actually got away with it. The first image in this slideshow is of an oven that's been destroyed, and inside of the oven we can see the outline of a human body. We then get a closer image of this oven, and the man that is supposedly responsible for this whole fiasco, known as the oven homicide. This case happened back in 1960 and is probably one of the most well-known cases in Finland, involving a husband known as Pentti and his former wife named Hilka, who mysteriously went missing. Hilka and Pentti had 5 children. They lived in this old house, but due to Pentti's violent nature, these children were sent off to live elsewhere. Eventually, one of the older sons came back to visit in 1960, but Hilka was nowhere to be found. Upon the son asking the father Pentti what had happened to his mother, the father stated that she had left and had no idea where she was. During the time the son was at the house, though, the father was doing a lot of very suspicious things, like rummaging around the oven, and there were places on the property that had been dug up. Eventually, the son suspected something bad had happened to his mother, however he couldn't prove this, and left and went on his way. It wasn't until 6 years later, though, when the son came back to the property and started inspecting certain things, that he realized his mother was probably no longer alive and sent a letter to the authorities. Things then stagnated on this case for another 6 years, and in 1972, investigators went through some cold cases and decided to finally explore the property themselves. They then dismantled the oven here, which had been filled with sand from the property, and after digging about 3 feet deep, they discovered this portion of Hilka's body first, and then even deeper, the rest of the remains of Hilka. Of course, Pentti was the #1 suspect here and was brought to trial and started making excuses that some Romanian people had broken in and taken her. However, these theories were quickly dismissed. And when further evidence was brought against Pentti, like the fact that his wife would consistently have to go to the doctor in order to have injuries treated that he caused, and in 1960, when Hilka had gone missing, he had went to a library and checked out 75 true crime novels on how to cover up murders, that he was more than likely guilty. The only problem was, because this case had gone cold for so long, they couldn't prove that he had done it on purpose, so they assumed the best case scenario and thought it was an accident. Pentti was then sentenced to 8 years imprisonment, which is already a very light sentence for what he allegedly did, but inevitably he only ended up serving 1 year until the courts decided to release him because they just couldn't prove that he had caused this. After being a free man and essentially getting away with this, he returned back to the old house, which by this point had been dilapidated, and lived out the rest of his years until he passed away in 1986. And even as of today, despite all of the overwhelming anecdotal evidence, because there wasn't any hard evidence, the case has been marked as an unsolved crime in public records. So let me know what you guys think about this case and whether or not you think Pentti actually did this. In my opinion, it seems pretty cut and dry that this is something that he did. He probably should have gotten a sentence, but that's my thoughts. What about you guys?